Today we're watching Children of Men from 2006. What'd you think?
Children of Men from 2006, I give it an 8 out of 10. I really, really like this movie. I felt the dystopia. I felt the world was plausible. I mean, the universe that Theo is moving through felt plausible. I like how the world wasn't fully explained. I thought the pacing was excellent. Like we're going on this journey with Theo, and it felt like I'm on the journey. I don't have time to think. I felt like it was great pacing. I do like Clive Owen. I haven't seen him in a while. I am reminded that I actually like him as an actor. And I really felt his death at the end. He's a reluctant hero. He made the sacrifice. I felt it.
What do you mean,
Um,
reluctant hero?
Reluctant hero. He decided to, I don't know, buy into the system as flawed as it was and make his way. But then throughout his journey in the movie, he did heroic things, but he didn't really
See,
want to at the beginning.
I see what you're saying. He's not in it for his own personal glory. The situation is thrust upon him, and then he has to rise to it. Okay, I see. I see.
Right, right.
I agree with
He's
that.
not like Luke Skywalker who's like looking to be a hero.
Mm,
He's more like an office worker who's thrust into a situation and he steps up, but he doesn't want to because he has an apartment.
mm.
Um, yeah, so I felt his death. All of these things were fantastic. There's some negatives though. I felt like the movie couldn't decide if it was about immigration or fertility. They didn't. They kind of clashed a little bit. Sometimes I felt there was a caricature. There were caricatures of characters, like some of the immigration enforcers and refugees. It all felt kind of cliche, caricature-like. Um, and I'm not sure everything in the story was fully thought through. Like different aspects of the story didn't necessarily follow one another. Like the fact that there's no fertility, how does that mean that there's an immigration problem? They don't seem that related. But overall, I really like the movie. So for me, 8 out of 10. What about you? What did you think?
For similar reasons, I gave it a 2 out of 10. This is one of the
Oh,
worst science fiction films I've ever seen. I mean, there are some hot garbage out there, but this thing has high quality production, but it made me angry. So
whoa.
first the pros. So good casting, excellent casting. I like all the characters. The acting was very good. Like they're very believable characters. And there's a different vibe from these 2006 films. If you haven't seen these 90s and 2000s films, go back and watch them. It's a very different vibe. The reason I say that is because of these long single camera, like slow shots. There's a different pacing to it. Whereas now it's like every 3 seconds, every 4 seconds, it's like new angle, new angle, new angle, which generates its own type of tension, but it's like an anxious tension because you're on your seat, of the edge of your seat because there's new information all the time. Whereas in these older science fiction films, the long shots draw out like a tension from the scene, not because of manufactured editing where they're like shoving information at you. So very different feel, very different vibe. Go give it a watch. Now, dystopian science fiction is not really my cup of science fiction generally, but I convinced myself that it's legit. And so dystopian sci-fi is like if you take an idea and you say, what if society was a little bit different? How would that society progress? How would it be different? And I think that is legitimate. It's imagining what worlds could be based off of one little change. And so it's in the same vein as Hunger Games, same vein as Soylent Green or Planet of the Apes. And I think these are all legitimate science fictions. You have an idea. What if the world was taken over by apes, and then what would their society evolve like? How would it be, and how would they treat humans? I think legitimate sci-fi. And so that's this metric that I've been coming up with here. You've seen it come up through the course of our channel developing. And so this metric that I really like is there a scientific kernel? Is there like an idea of if this was true but instead false, how would society then change? And so in this movie, in Children of Men, the kernel is what would happen to society if we stopped having babies? Okay, now the problem, I mean, I like the idea, but the problem with this is that I don't think a lot of the movie follows from that. And so if humans stopped having babies, why did we in this world? Why did we have World War III? Why did the UK close its borders? Why were there refugees? Why were we doing this? It felt like here's an idea, here's a fantasy. Let's see what happens with the society, and then here's a bunch of scary stuff. You should feel bad about that, and you should feel bad about this, and you should feel bad about this. But it felt like the idea, the origin, the kernel of the idea of the story that we can't have babies was just thrown away. And so that feels to me like manipulation, and I don't like it. And it's hard. It pulls me out of the story, and it makes me disengage with it. And I'm not in the world thinking, oh yeah, this would make sense, or what could happen, or what might be happening next. It's just you're throwing stuff at me because you want to say your current political stuff at me. It's very frustrating. The okay thing, I guess, it's a con. I wrote it as a con that they never explain why the humans no longer have babies. Now that's a little bit dissatisfying as scientists. Like I want the answer, but okay. But actually, it's actually okay because there are active scientific mysteries that we don't know the answers to, and so if you don't have the answer, you can't say what the answer is. And I think it's okay that in this world here, in this universe of Children of Men, they don't know yet. The frustrating thing is that science moves very slowly before we like concrete stamp and like this is embedded into our understanding of the world. Science moves very slowly, but scientists move very quickly. We're very rapidly coming up with ideas for explanations. I think this also applies to engineers. If you show a picture of a bridge collapsing to a civil engineer, I think they're rapidly saying like, why did this bridge collapse? Instead of here, they're 18 years later and just be like, the bridge fell down. We don't know. Like, I think there needs to be guesses at explanations. Another con of this film is that there's religious parallels. I mean, in principle, okay, it's just kind of annoying that, like, why are you shoving religion into science fiction? It doesn't take away from the movie too much, but it's also kind of like, why is this here? And then the thing that irked me right at the end is that when people finally see the baby, the reactions are really dull, really like okay, like a baby, like. But no, if you lived in the world of this science fiction film, if you lived in this world of Children of Men where you haven't seen a baby for 18 years, and so all of humanity it's toast. It's like everyone in the world, they're saying like this is the last generation of humans. If you suddenly see a baby, this is world shattering. This is mind shattering. You're like down on the ground weeping. Like there's hope. There's hope still that humanity might survive. And I just didn't see that. So it felt very like the world was not lived in by the writers, by the directors. I'm not sure, but they really didn't think what it would be like to be in that world and to experience what it would be like. Instead, we kind of just got their political statements.
It's so interesting because to me, I felt engrossed in the world and I was able to forgive a lot of the problems. It's interesting how I was able to forgive and felt engrossed, but you were not able to forgive and did not feel engrossed.
I will say,
so interesting.
So I'll say that when science fiction films are like deep in the future, 1,000 years, 10,000 years in the future, I'm much more forgiving because I don't know how society has changed over time. When science fiction films are put in the near present, then I want to see how they're connected from where we got to now to where they are in the future. And I want to see that scientific, that question, that kernel, that the little twist of how our world works now to how the world works in the movie. I want to see how would that then create the problems that we later on have to encounter in the film. I just didn't see it. There's the idea of we don't have kids, and then there's like this scary thing and this scary thing and this scary thing. And so as an audience member, like you want me to feel these things, but I don't know why you're telling me to feel that. Like you're just throwing scary stuff at me.
Gosh, yeah, because this is how I felt. Your feeling is how I felt about The Last of Us, where it felt like we have the zombie premise, but who cares? Let's talk about relationships and let's talk about death and let's talk about this other thing. But like, and this love story, but what about the premise? I thought we were in a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, like that town that was fully operational with lights and power and water is like.
Yeah. Like what the heck?
Are we afraid of drawing in zombies at night? Why do we have lights on?
Yeah. So I can't quite figure out why I was unable to forgive The Last of Us, but I am able to forgive Children of Men. I don't have an answer other than I felt things. Very interesting.
I think in both of these instances, if they had in Last of Us, if they had built up these like interpersonal connections, but it made sense given that the zombies are around. then it's okay because you have the scientific kernel. Like, what if they're zombies? And then I need to be able to see the small steps along the way to therefore we have these problems that we have to deal with in the movie. But if we have a little kernel and then kind of irrelevant problems, then I don't know why these problems are occurring. Like, there's lots of reasons why the problems in Children of Men could have occurred. I don't see what that has to do with not having babies.
Yeah. I mean, I intellectually see it. I still feel the movie as I watch it. So I gave it a high score. But I see it. I see the problems. I don't get it. It's very much like Star Trek 2009. I love that movie. Every time I watch it, it's like, yes. But the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this story doesn't make any sense.
Okay, but that movie's a good time. That movie's a good time. Yeah, you're right. If you really think about Star Trek 2009, it's like there's lots of problems.
Lots of problems.
It's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. All right, let's get into it.
So I thought of a good example for how the moral story makes sense in a science fiction universe. A really good example is Jurassic Park. So you have, what if dinosaurs came back and then the dinosaurs get out of control and then they're like, they say, well, this is man's hubris and this is problems came because we thought we could control everything, and so now you're in a naturally occurring problem. And there you can do your social shaming, your social messaging makes sense, feels fine, not a problem. It's when it's disjointed, when the kernel and the messaging is separated, when it's non sequitur, then I just don't see what you're doing. You're just shoving stuff at me.
Right. When the things, the political statements and the social statements you want to say don't fall out of the premise, but it's just sort of tacked on.
Feels bad.
Feels bad.
But if it does fall out of the premise, whoo, that's good storytelling. That's incredible. That's right, a good feeling.
It's good, yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this movie, Children of Men.